Welcome back to Weekend Warrior Workshop DIY, where we get things done. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to go over part 3 of the bathroom remodel, so if that interests you, stick around. Today I'm going to cover part 3 of our bathroom remodel, and if you missed part 1 and 2, there will be links at the end of this video. In part 1, we reviewed the demolition of the bathroom, and in part 2, we covered preparing for tile by installing backer board and waterproofing for the shower. Today we're going to cover installing the tile, installing the vanity sink, as well as the countertop. If you remember from part 1, when we were laying out the design of the bathroom, we needed to stay with the narrow sink and cabinet since our bathroom is so narrow. In our searching for a narrow sink, we could not find many options in the dimensions we wanted to stay within. We ended up going with the sink that we found at IKEA. It was around 13.25 inch deep. However, I did not like the cabinet choice they had, as it was made from particle board material that I did not feel would hold up in the wet areas. So I elected to build my own vanity cabinet. I found some decorative barnwood from Home Depot that my wife and I liked. I took this material and built the rough frame, and also built a little door to match. I then lightly sanded the rough spots, but not too much to destroy that barnwood look that we both liked. And after achieving the desired look, I added several coats of polyurethane to protect it. Before I started tiling, I also decided to waterproof this entire wall, around the 5-foot mark and all the way to the floor. I had bought the larger bucket of Red Guard, so I had enough left over from the shower area to do this. This would ensure I had extra protection around the sink area, and once I was complete with the vanity frame and the sink attached, I was ready to install the countertop. So I went to a local tile shop that had some remnant counter pieces that I wanted to look through as some options. On my way out to their yard, I saw a broken piece leaning against the wall that was around 2.5 feet by 4 feet, and I noticed it because it had 2 finished edges already. I asked about that piece, and they said it broke off during an installation and they had to recut the entire slab. I asked if it was available for purchase, and it was. Even though I was looking for a quartz piece to put in the bathroom, I couldn't pass up this good deal on this marble. I brought it home and set up a small wet tile saw that I had. It's a small, mini table saw. I built temporary infeed and outfeed table to support the weight of that slab as I cut it. I then cut it down to dimensions that I needed for the bathroom. It's a small piece, around 13 inches by 36 inches. The finished edges happened to be the ones I needed, so it was perfect. I used some silicone and I installed it on top of the cabinet. Now that this was complete, I was ready to tile. I don't happen to have a picture for the shower area specifically, but for the wall, I'll show you a ledger board that I use similar to this here in the shower. What I did is I found the lowest point of the bathtub. Mine happens to slope slightly. I wanted to find the lowest point because I wanted to make sure this was the starting point that I used for my first row of tiles. I wanted to make sure I had a full width of tile at this point. I chose to lay it out this way. That way the full tile, as it sloped upwards, I can trim it so this tile would slowly get smaller, as opposed to the other way around, using a full tile at a high spot and then having to fill a gap with some small wedges. So by doing this, I found that mark and I put it on the wall, and then I used a level to go around all 3 walls at that exact point. This ensured that I had the ledger board level all the way around on the 3 walls to then build the subway tile pattern up from that point. Once I had this ledger board attached to the wall all the way around on the 3 walls, I started laying out the tile, and every 3 rows or so I made sure to check for the level. There were some slight inconsistencies in the tiles themselves as well as the wedges, so I just wanted to use this to make sure to have a level look all the way across the tub. When shopping for mortar, make sure to buy the mortar based on the size of the tile you have. The packaging will have the size of the tile that it's designed for. And I also want to caution you to make sure that you follow the directions for mixing it to a T. These new mixes on the mortar, they're highly modified and they need time to set up for a chemical reaction. So if you just try to wing it on mixing it, you might have some failure on the installation, and I wouldn't want that for your project. So if you end up going with an unmodified or old school version of mortar, you'll be fine. But if you have any of the modified, make sure you follow the mixing directions to a T. This was the first time I had installed subway tile, and I quickly learned that I had a hard time keeping up installing the mortar on the wall and then placing the tile without the mortar starting to dry on me. So I ended up using a method that's called back buttering. It's when you install the mortar directly to the back of the tile with your trowel and then place the tile on the wall. I tried this with a few tiles and then I pulled them back off using a putty knife, and I wanted to make sure I had enough coverage on the mortar at the back of the tile. So once I was satisfied with the coverage, I was ready to go. For me, this method worked much better, and I was happier with the pace I was able to accomplish tiling up the wall. I would place the tile on the spacers, and then I'd slightly move it side to side to set it in place. So don't push too hard. You still want to make sure that there's still mortar behind the tile. It's kind of like the Goldilocks of setting tile. Not too hard, not too soft, but just right. Once I'd reached the desired height of the tile going up the wall, I used a bullnose tile, I'll show a picture here, to finish off the top and as well as the edges. I liked the finished look that this bullnose tile had. It had a nice clean rounded edge. They are a little more expensive than your regular subway tile, but it gives a nice finish off look, and you don't have the porcelain tile showing on the edge. I also used this same tile to frame in the niches, and during this project I used two different saws. I'll put a link in the description of both the saws that I used. Since remodeling this bathroom, I've started on our master bath, which is the current project I'm working on, and videos on that will be coming out. But I say this to bring up the fact that with our bathroom remodel in the master area, I purchased a wet tile saw with a sliding table, and it has the ability to have miter angles from 90 to 45 degrees. What a game changer. I regret not having it for this project. It creates a much nicer cut, and it allowed me to do more intricate miters, which would have had a better niche look in this bathroom. So if you have it in your budget, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link to the description of the one I purchased after doing some research. And also something else I bought for my current project that I wish I had for this one was a laser level. I'll also put a link to that in the description. Once I was done tiling the tub shower area, I was ready to move to the sink wall. Here's a picture of the ledger board I was referring to earlier when I started tiling the shower. I want to highlight here, it is worth prepping out your plan for the tile before you start laying it out. I feel that this is the difference between a project looking like a beginner DIYer or something that looked like a pro came in and installed. One feature I want to point out here, if I started from the floor and then tiled my way up, when I reached the sink area, I would have a small sliver of tile just above the sink where the sink met the wall. Since most of the time in the bathroom you'll be standing at the sink, it's just a center of attention. I wanted to make sure that this looked nice. So I wanted this to be a focal point with the grout lines. With this, I wanted the grout line to come off of the top of the sink and continue down the wall. And that's the reason you'll see the ledger board here on the wall being so high. But once that row dried and set, I was able to build off of it going upwards, and when I finished tiling to the wall, I then started tiling back down towards the floor. What I ended up doing was back buttering the tile, placing it just below it with the appropriate spacers, and then used blue tape to hold it to the tile above that was already dried, and this left it where it stayed nice and level, evenly spaced, and it didn't slide down the wall. It was a great strategy I learned, and it worked really well. Once I was complete with all the tile, which was a job I never thought would end, I was ready to begin grouting. I ended up using a special grout. I'll show a picture here. This grout has an epoxy that makes it extremely hard. Also, it claims to be mold and mildew resistant. I've been complete with this project for around 3 years now, and the shower is still mold and mildew free, so it seems to be holding up. The one downside is that it is hard to work with to install. Using other grouts, I was able to complete the entire area all at once. However, with this grout, it takes patience and taking small areas at a time. You have a small working time. It is a pain during the time you're installing. However, it is well worth it when it's done. Just make sure to have several buckets of clean water, and if you have any helpers, it makes it easier. I had my kids help by dumping out the buckets and continually bring me clean buckets of water. For us, it was an all-hands-on-deck project for the Bucket Brigade. There was one part of the project that I ended up hiring out, and that was to refinish the bathtub. It was the original 1940 cast iron tub that we wanted to keep. We really liked the look of it. However, when we first moved in, I tried a product to refinish it from a big box store, and it did not hold up very well, and I did not want to try it again. Instead of experimenting with the different products, we found a local business that came in to refinish it. They did a great job, and I'm glad that we spent the extra money for this step. I'm extremely happy with how it turned out. I love the character of this old tub, and I'm happy that we did not replace it. Once this was complete, we were ready for the floor. We went with an engineered product that is made out of 100% waterproof material. The color we ended up going with is called Scratch Stone. When we ordered it, we knew at some point we wanted to use this in our master bathroom remodel whenever we were able to save up enough money to take on that project. We went ahead and purchased enough flooring for both bathrooms, and at this point I'm glad we did that. We also decided to add even more storage to the bathroom by adding cabinets above the toilet. By doing this, we tripled the amount of storage that this bathroom had originally, and with 3 kids, this is a much needed addition, and we're really happy that we decided to do that. Another upgrade we wanted to do was to try to add some natural light. If you remember from part 1 and 2, the original window was closed in by adding on an addition to the house. With this, it turned the bathroom into a dark room right in the center of the house. And even during the day, you had no natural light. You had to turn on a light switch. We elected to put in a 12-inch sun tube that I installed. I purchased a kit from a local big box store, and it was a relatively easy project that made a night and day difference. Night and day difference, you see what I did there? Never mind, I digress. Moving on. This has completely changed the feel by adding some much needed natural light. If you have a center of the house bathroom or any room in the center of the house you want to light up, I highly recommend this. If you're willing to get in your attic and on your roof, it is a DIY project for someone that's at the intermediate or advanced level in their DIY skills. I then took the same material I used for the vanity cabinet and I built 2 mirrors, one for above the sink and the other for the door for the newly designed medicine cabinet on the far wall. I sanded and finished the same way that I did the vanity cabinet, and by adding this second mirror, it allows for 2 people to each have their own mirror as they're getting ready in the morning. And if you have 2 daughters like I do, you know that this was an excellent decision and worth the extra time. At this point, I was on the home stretch. After painting and installing the new light that my wife really liked, I needed to wrap up one more item before completion, and this was to add a step stool that could slide out. Even though our kids had grown out of this need, my wife had several friends that had small little ones, and she wanted to make sure that I included this in the design. While I was at it, I wanted to add a little chevron pattern on the step just as a nice decorative feature. Well, that concludes the bathroom remodel. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was another honeydew project that I get to check off my list. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's free and it really helps me out. Also, if you want to know when I release a new video, hit the bell button and this will notify you when I have a new video. If you think it's worth sharing, click the share button and share it with a friend. Thank you for joining me on this 3-part video series of remodeling our 1940 bathroom. I hope you have a wonderful day.